Hello, everyone. My guest today is Max Rofagha. He's the founder of Finimize, the world's largest and most engaged finance community. He previously co-founded one of the largest e-commerce players in Switzerland and sold it with 200 employees to the largest Swiss media house. He was a Forbes 30 under 30 participant in 2016 and also a Techstars mentor. Mac, you ready to take us to the top?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's great. So when did you start building Finimize? Was it during you building the e-commerce business, or was it after?
It kind of started a little bit as a side project, and then I really started to devote my time to it fully at the end of 2016. So I started the company in August of 2016.
And what is the company? Is it a community play? Like how do you make money?
So we define ourselves as a community business, and we make money through multiple revenue streams. So we have 3 revenue streams. We have advertising, we have subscription, and we have perhaps most relevant for your audience, the B2B licensing play as well, where we license content to other platforms.
Oh, that's really interesting. So I think I get the ads model. That's probably sponsorships in your email sends on your site. Peel back that onion real quick before we do the other 2 revenue streams. What's a sponsorship to like your email list look like?
Exactly. So we have around about 1 million users, members as we refer to them, all over the world. It's a very relevant target group for many, specifically financial institutions. And so they can buy access to that audience primarily through the newsletter, but also on the website, some of our meetups, etc. And you can buy a daily or a weekly or like a multi-month slot and get that brand awareness, brand exposure, and education of the market about your product.
Can we go deeper for a second? So how many people are on the email list?
Around about 1 million.
Okay. And when you send out a sponsored sort of dedicated email send, how many typically open?
So we have pretty high open rates between like in the high 30s, low 40%.
Okay, so call it 300 or 400,000 open, and how many will click? Obviously, this is very dependent on how cool the sponsor is, right? If it's a bad sponsor,
Absolutely.
Low clicks. Good sponsor who you love, more clicks. What's a good sponsor get?
That really depends. As you say, I mean, we see like 10x variances.
Oh wow!
It really depends. Like some stuff really resonates, and some stuff I think there's not as much as a sort of a partner audience fit. And that's why sometimes we do test campaigns and people can try stuff out, test our audience, and if they like it, they do more, and if not, they had a pretty minimal exposure.
Mm-hmm. What would something that resonates well? What would you consider resonates well on 300,000 opens? They're going to get how many clicks?
I mean, that can range from anywhere from like 1,000 all the way to like thousands of clicks in one day. There's a very, very wide variance there.
So how do you manage that? I mean, a lot of folks who have a sponsorship newsletter, the Morning Brew style, the Stacked Marketer style, Druid Trends style, the sort of Substack, subscription plus sponsor style, they have the same issue. You're never quite sure how a sponsor is going to resonate. And if you sell them a number of clicks and then don't deliver, like, what do you do?
So we don't sell clicks. We sell opens, as I think is the case for many of the newsletter products out there. And so we say, hey, this is how many opens we estimate that you're going to get. And then we charge you on an open basis. And that way we're incentivized to actually deliver your ads to the audience, and they open it. But that, we can control ultimately whether someone's going to click onto your product or onto your ad. What we do is we do A/B testing. We work very, very closely with partners. We have our in-house copywriters produce the ad copy so that it feels as native as possible. And then we just try and do our best also to apply our experiences there.
Yep. So what would you charge? Like when you send your media kit out to a potential sponsor, 300,000 opens, 1 million, and let's just say they want to test one send. What do average rates look like?
That's something that you'd have to talk to our sales folks with. That's not something that we just would publicly communicate because there's so many different parameters involved here. What's the duration, etc. So probably one for our sales team.
Can you help us get like some sort of concreteness or less vague, just so people can learn live? So PitchBook came on the other day. They've got a list that's about your same size, about same open rate. They said, look, it obviously varies on a lot of stuff, but we charge on average about $7,000 per send to be included in the send. The number of clicks we're not responsible for, but it's about 7,000. They get about 250,000 opens. I mean, is it fair to say you guys, it's somewhere between maybe like 5 and 10 grand per placement, something like that?
Yeah, it's probably in a similar ballpark to some of the other players in the market for sure.
Okay, so that's one business model. Tell me about the other ones.
So then we have our consumer subscription, which is a premium content play, and the end users essentially pay us £59.99, or I think in the US it's $79.99 US,
depending on the day.
Exactly, depending on the day, very much. And what that does is,
and that's per year or per month?
Per year.
Okay.
And so what that does is it unlocks our full content library, which is currently primarily in the app, but we're also building out a web app for this. We have over 100 different audio guides, long form audio guides that explain anything from how to think about investing in Microsoft, or how to think about Google's moonshot when you think about their investment thesis there. But the primary driver that we see why people buy this is we have two products. One is we have a daily brief. So we basically explain to you every single day in under 7 minutes as an audio product what's happened in the world of finance, very similar to our newsletter. And then we have our Analyst Insights, which is, I think, personally the most exciting product. So we have a whole team of analysts who previously worked at Goldman Sachs, at Bloomberg, really, really sophisticated financial experts. And they share their views and opinions on investing opportunities, investing trends. And so you can learn from their insights. And that is, again, is available in text and in audio.
Are they full-time employees of Finimize, or they volunteer their time in analysis?
No, it's our, we have a full team of analysts. Oh, wow. It's one of the core assets that we have is that team.
Exactly. How big is that team?
I think we are now 6 people.
Oh, wow.
6 analysts.
Wow. And how big is like the whole operation, everything all together? How many total team members?
Including a couple of like part-timers, I would say around about 30, between 25 and 30, depending on how you count it.
Yep.
So we're pretty lean, but it works.
Yeah, well, hey, lean. There's nothing wrong with being lean. Nothing wrong at all. All right. So newsletter membership, consumer subscriptions, and the last one.
So the last one is our API business, which is sort of our newest business, which very much came up from inbound that we received.
Oh, wow.
So what happened essentially was we started getting a lot of investment platforms, a lot of brokerages come to us and say, hey, we have a huge user base. We're struggling a little bit to activate all of them, and we want to use content to activate them. There's a couple of examples. Robinhood has done a decent job with this. You're starting to see an E-Trade, those kind of guys in their latest earnings reports talk about how content is a major activation driver for them. And so these platforms come to us and they say, hey, we've tried content ourselves. We couldn't really crack it. We love the way that you guys do content. Can we have it? And so when we started to receive a couple of these inbound requests, we thought about what can we do, and we essentially created an API. And now you can go and plug into our API and pull the sort of a product palette that we've created from daily, weekly news, text, and audio. Plug it directly into your own app, and so then all of a sudden you have a really, really nice content library, and then we sell that to you as an annual license.
Very interesting. And are you able to drive expansion revenue on that? I know it's new, but can you drive expansion revenue on that product based off like number of API calls annually, or projected number of API calls?
Yeah, so I think right now we are early days, and so we're just doing a flat fee for a year on the product that you're doing, but 100% what you said. So obviously, one of the things that'll be interesting is to start charging based on usage. The other thing is obviously today we have a very small product palette that we offer you by the API. Again, we're looking to expand that. So a lot of things that we can do there.
And Max, when you look at like the last 12 months, so 2020 is almost done. We'll just use this year as an example. What would you say the revenue split is between these 3 streams, percentage wise?
Good question. So certainly our fastest growing segment has been our subscriptions. And I would say it's roughly it's maybe 70% subscriptions and advertising, and then 30% licensing.
Oh, so
Roughly.
even that new business, it must be growing pretty quickly to already be making up 30% of your total revenue.
Yeah, it's been growing pretty nicely.
That's super. I mean, this to me is what's fascinating, right? Is if you agree today that social capital is the precursor to financial capital, you've done. When did you launch Finimize? What year?
In end of 2016.
Yeah, you've spent the last 4 years building your moat, your media moat, the attention, and now you can effectively launch any financial product pretty darn quickly on a what you could call a better business model, a SaaS based or whatever, an API based business model. Are you seeing that pattern internally? Do you feel like you have a leg up versus your last e-commerce company built in Switzerland where you didn't have a big audience before you launched?
So I would caveat that a little bit. One of the learnings or one of the appreciations that I got for having scale is my previous business. So we were reaching 25% of all households within Switzerland at the time. We had a higher brand awareness than British Airways.
What was that business, by the way?
It was called Dine Deal, which means your deal.
Huh.
And it was one of those things like everybody knew it. And if you weren't shopping with us, then you probably didn't like what we were doing. And the reason why I mentioned this is we did a ton of experimentation into different product verticals, and we would test so many different categories. And if it worked, we left it. If it didn't work, we killed it. And the power here was that we had such a large audience that we could do that. And so that's, I think, was one of the kernels that then led me in the way I started building Finimize, is that scale is so crucial, because exactly what you said, it allows you to start testing some things as we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Did you gain financial independence from the Dine Deal exit so you could take a big risk with Finimize, or was it sort of a nice exit? You could take a couple months off, but you had to sort of get back to work building something new.
Yeah, so I think I was 28 at the time, and I wouldn't say that I would have never had to work again, but it was a nice exit, and I think it gave me freedom to experiment with a new product, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, and there were several of you guys there at the top, right? I mean, there are a lot of founders.
5, yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of people to get to agree on one single direction, right?
Exactly.
How many are you the sole founder now of Phenomize, or you have multiple co-founders?
I'm the only founder.
Oh, great.
So gone the totally other direction.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I asked, right? You got one way, now you go the other. Now, have you bootstrapped Phenomize or have you raised?
We raised a little bit of money from some angels and from some VCs, but really not that much.
What year was that?
We raised a pre-seed in 2016, at the end of 2016 when we started, and then raised a little bit more money after that, primarily just to get a bunch of interesting people on board who could help us. But like I said, we've been pretty lean, which has advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, I want to talk more about leanness in our last 5 minutes here, but can you quantify that for us? I mean, you did 2 rounds, it sounds like. How much did you raise in 2016?
We did round about like £500,000 then, and then we did something in the single digit million altogether. I actually don't have the exact number off the top of my head, so nothing by any means, nothing major.
Got it. Yeah, so altogether, some maybe around $1 million USD, something like that.
Probably a little bit more. But,
okay.
Yeah, in that ballpark. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So you use that capital, bring on great new talent, run some new tests. Talk to me about running lean, right? I mean, how have you resisted the urge to go raise more capital to accelerate growth? How have you been able to stay patient?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. So I think fundamentally, one of the things that I think is really important is that you're able to build a business and it feels like your business. And I think what's sometimes a bit challenging is if you end up with like 7% of the business that you started, then and everybody else has the full control, and you ultimately have become an employee. You're no longer the actual founder. So I think that was, I think something that I valued is just having that independence and being able to steer the company. And I think, the thing that we're building is not something that A, has been done before, and B, is super easy to understand for everybody. Especially community plays are so complicated to really appreciate, that I wanted to make sure we have the right breathing room to actually build this properly.
Mm-hmm. That all makes interesting sense to me. And so with these three business models moving forward, you said 70% is coming from ads plus the consumer subscriptions, 30% from the new API business, right?
Like I said, roughly off the top of my head, that would be sort of, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On the consumer side, there's a lot of newsletter companies right now with very effective sort of ways to introduce a paywall. Right, we see Substack doing very well. We see people, setting up their own ClickFunnels things. How do you introduce the paywall? And can you give us a general sense of maybe how many new subscribers you're adding per month right now?
Yeah, so I think for us, we see two things. We're a little bit different to what you described with the example of Substack. So we've never done paid marketing up until this year. And the only reason why we started doing paid marketing is because we have our consumer subscription product. And that allows us, from a cash flow point of view, coming back to this leanness, that allows us to acquire customers, and basically we get the money back through the subscription that they pay us. And so we're using also the subscription to really build a new user base, in addition to the transfer that's happening from the newsletter into the subscription. So I think it's not like our user flow is not sign up for a newsletter and then we try to upsell you, although we do say there's more stuff here that you're missing. I think there's sort of an overlap, and some people prefer to be on the newsletter and we monetize those through the advertising, and some people prefer to be on subscription and we monetize them through subscription and no advertising. And then there's an overlap. But our aim is not to say everybody from the newsletter needs to be on the subscription. We want to grow it both ways.
Yep. No, it makes a lot of sense. When did you officially launch that subscription product?
In July of last year.
Okay, so call it 2019. And do you remember by the end of 2019 how many folks you'd signed up to that?
I do not remember the exact number, but I can tell you that in the US, we are usually in the top 15, top 20 highest grossing finance apps, and in the UK, typically in the top 3.
I know nothing about App Annie data and App Store data. What does it mean? What is the top grossing? I don't even know what the top grossing finance app is in the US. Like, how much do you have to make to make the top 10, would you say?
They don't say that information, unfortunately. They don't tell you that. They just give you sort of your relative ranks. Typically, the way these rankings work is you either measure it by downloads. So we're typically in the top 100 or top 50, depending on the country, downloaded finance apps. And then they look at, okay, so how much revenue do these apps make through the App Store? And so a lot of these apps are very established players, like Intuit has some apps that with QuickBooks that make a very, very high grossing products in the ranks. But unfortunately, App Annie and Sensor Tower and those guys don't actually tell you the revenue numbers.
Yeah. Interesting. Before we wrap up, so can you, you don't know the exact number, but are we talking like 1,000 people on the consumer subscription or like tens of thousands on the consumer subscription product?
So we're not super keen on always sharing these numbers, but it's definitely in the latter camp.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm going to give you a big range here for you to confirm or not. So is it fair to say somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 subscribers there?
Yes.
Okay, fair. I won't push you harder. See, I'm being nice. We won't push any harder than that. But that's good. I mean, I push you there because I want people to appreciate what you've done, right? I mean, that's not easy.
Yeah.
It is not easy. I mean, how many engineers? I mean, you have to build the whole.
So don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you have to build the whole app, right? I mean, how many engineers do you have on the team?
We have four full-time engineers with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a custom-built app, right?
Tiny. Yeah, it's custom built. I mean, pretty much everything we do is custom. Even the audio, the themes, our head of audio custom made. He composed the musical themes.
Wow.
Everything we do is pretty much custom.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, anything else you wish I asked about that you feel like is just like a secret that you've learned that I haven't asked about?
Yeah, I think the power of community, and I'll give you a couple of nuggets, perhaps that are interesting. I think number one, we have this underlying product thesis that people come for the content, they stay for the community. And one of the things that we've noticed is when it comes specifically to our subscription product, we see that the churn of our community engaged people is literally half of those who aren't engaged with the community. So community for us is a huge retention driver.
Wait, what do you mean by that? How do you define someone who has paid for the consumer app but is not active? How do you define that? They haven't downloaded it, or?
So when you buy a subscription, you get access to the premium community, and that means meetups that are only available for premium members. But it also means we have these chat groups, and you only get access to the chat groups if you're part of the premium membership. And as soon as you engage with a chat group, for example, we see in the data that your retention rate doubles or your churn rate halves. Okay. Whereas if you're just a normal person consuming the content, you've still paid, you're still consuming, you're twice as likely to churn. That's a really interesting insight.
So a community contributor versus a community lurker.
Possibly, that's how you could describe it. Exactly.
Yeah. What else? You were giving me a list. Power of community. Number one, come for content, stay for community. Engaged is lower churn than not engaged. What else?
Then obviously there's this whole, I think there's two ways that you can play community. One is you can really push word of mouth. The other one is that you can really push customer satisfaction through NPS. We've been more focused on the NPS side of things. And then the final piece, which I think is interesting, and one of the things that we've now been really focusing on, is the whole concept of UGC, right? So user-generated content. And so we're finding new ways how we can empower our audience, our community, to create content, and then we can use that content and the insights that we get from the community to share it with the rest of our audience. And we're doing that through text, but also through our audio product, which is super cool.
Interesting.
So UGC is another thing that's, you're typically used to it on like Reddit, those kind of platforms. But the thing that we're exploring for the first time really is, can you create an interesting, useful audio UGC product? And that's what we're working on.
Really interesting. All right, Mac, let's wrap up here with the famous five. Number one, favorite business book.
I'll give you the most recent one I read because I love it, is the autobiography of Michael Ovitz, the founder of CAA.
Big red cover, right? Oh, exactly. Wait, Power or his autobiography?
Autobiography. Also has a red cover.
Oh, got it. But you're not talking about the book called Power?
No.
Okay, got it.
This is autobiography. I think it's just called like Michael Ovitz. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
I'll give you two sides of the coin. I think obviously in the tech world, huge admiration for people on the very top, like Jeff Bezos, etc. But I also really love to learn about people who are not in the tech world, like the person who founded Whole Foods or the person who founded Patagonia, and really just to get slightly different perspectives on how to run a company.
Number three, what's your favorite online tool for growing Finimize?
As in for user acquisition, or growing us as an organization for internal purposes?
User acquisition.
TikTok.
I want to ask so many questions about that, but we're out of time. Number four, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
I try to get 8.
And what's your situation? Married, single, kids?
I've been in a long-term relationship.
Any kiddos?
No, not yet.
Okay, and how old are you?
I am 33.
All right, Max, take us home here. What do you wish you knew when you were 20?
Go with the flow. It'll all make sense as you go along.
Guys, there you have it. Finimize, 3 different revenue streams. They've got 1 million folks on their newsletter. They focus on being highly and having them be highly engaged via their NPS score. They've also scaled a consumer subscription product at $80 a year. They're also just launched their fastest growing revenue stream, their API product, which makes up 30% of their total revenue as they look to continue to scale. They've done this on a very pretty capital efficient way. Caught between $1 and $3 million raised, team size of 30, 4 engineers, their own app built, really focused now on driving user retention by helping community members contribute content, both audio format and text format. We'll see where that leads. In the meantime, Max, thanks for taking us to the top.
Perfect summary. Thanks so much.
One more thing before you go. We have a brand new show every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's called Shark Tank for SaaS. We call it Deal or Bust. One founder comes on, 3 hungry buyers, they try and do a deal live, and the founder shares back-end dashboards, their expenses, their revenue, ARPU, CAC, LTV, you name it, they share it. And the buyers try and make a deal live. It is fun to watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central. Additionally, remember, these recorded founder interviews go live. We release them here on YouTube every day at 2 p.m. Central. To make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube, the big red button, and then click the little bell notification to make sure you get notifications when we do go live. I wouldn't want you to miss breaking news in the SaaS world, whether it's an acquisition, a big fundraise, a big sale, a big profitability statement, or something else. I don't want you to miss it. Additionally, if you want to take this conversation deeper and further, we have by far the largest private Slack community for B2B SaaS founders. You want to get in there. We've probably talked about your tool if you're running a company or your firm if you're investing. You can go in there and quickly search and see what people are saying. Sign up for that at nathanlatka.com/Slack. In the meantime, I'm hanging out with you here on YouTube. I'll be in the comments for the next 30 minutes. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up. We get a lot of haters that are mad at how aggressive I am on these shows, but I do it so that we can all learn. We have to counter those people. We got to push them away. Click the thumbs up below to counter them and know that I appreciate your guys' support. All right, I'll be in the comments. See ya.